All right. We'll go ahead and call the Public Works meeting for April 22nd, City Hall here to order. We have one of our council members, our alderman, that is running just a little bit late this evening, and he'll be here in about 5 minutes. I just got in touch with him, so just to let the public know and as well as our committee know as well. It's good to see everybody. What we'll go ahead and do is we'll go ahead and I'll ask for an acceptance of the agenda. If there's no objection, then we'll just go ahead and accept it. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda that needs not hearing none? We'll go ahead and move, look at the minutes right quick. And I need a motion for acceptance of the minutes.
I've reviewed them and they appear accurate, so I move approval.
Okay, thank you, sir. And we have a motion and a proper second. Any further discussion dealing with the minutes? Hearing none, is everybody ready to vote? All in favor of February 25th minutes meeting, signify by saying aye. Aye. And motion carries for approval with one absence right at this point, but he should be here. Okay, now we've done that. Let's go with citizens' comments this evening. And Mr. Raver has, from 113 West Harbor, has signed up. And so, Mr. Raver, I'm going to give the floor to you, sir. And you just let us know what we can help you with.
Well, I've come for Harbor Town subdivision. That's where I live. And we have a serious speeding issue in our neighborhood. It's the signage is listed at 25 miles an hour, and there is just, it's rampant. It's people almost getting hit while they're backing out of their driveways or coming out of their driveways. People walking. We've had in the last year, we've had a high influx of a lot of families with children, and so people are walking their dogs, walking with their families, and we've had people that have to jump out of the road into yards because we have no sidewalks. And we have walking trails, but to get to the walking trails, you have to walk through the street. So we're looking for some type of traffic calming solution. Like, I mean, I don't want to say speed bumps because those can be, heck on your vehicles, but like speed humps where they split the road and people can split them and things like that, just to get people to slow down. About 4 years ago, we've lived there for a little over 5 years. About 4 years ago, they did a survey and where they set up, the strips and could determine how fast people were going through a certain section. And they ran that for about 4 weeks. And then when it was time to get the data for the study, it somehow got misplaced. So that never came to fruition. And so we never got the data on that. And so basically they dropped it. And they said that there was going to be more police presence. And I've yet to hear of anybody getting a ticket or even getting just, stopped and warned or so. But we have, in the last year, we have people riding around on mini bikes and ATVs and just, you can't always call the cops. It's just like, because there's things that they have to do. And it's like, but sometimes you need a presence. And I was going to ask for if we could find some way to get some traffic calming solution in that neighborhood. Because it's like, it goes around West Harbor, runs to the lake, and then it comes around and it turns into East Harbor. And it's both sides of that area. I live on West Harbor, and one of the issues is that it dips down into a valley, and where there's a runoff and like a common area. And so people speed up and they just hit the bottom of that hill and go up. And it's just, I mean, it's constant. And so that's all I'm asking for. And I know that, you know, money's always an issue and there's everything, but something's needed there because I'm worried that somebody's going to get hurt. And, you know, and it's just not right that a family has to walk with their, you know, kids and their dogs, and they got to jump out of the road because they don't think somebody's going to stop. So it's just not right.
Is there anything else that comes to mind besides all this? And then we'll discuss this in just a second.
Well, there some of that issue too is that, you know, there's a lot of, I don't know what it is that, I mean, and this is more of an HOA thing, I think, is that, you know, cars park in the street.
Right.
And so that can cause a you know, distraction to people, and, you know, and they're constantly swerving in and out and things like that. So, I mean, it's just, I don't know if it's more, I don't know if it's like signage, like kids at play or anything like that. I don't think that's going to help, you know, or, you know, what they call it nowadays, they call them pretty signs. You know, it's like, you know, our kids, you know, matter to us, you know, that thing. It's like, I mean, if you're a speeder, you're a speeder, you know, you just drive fast. So, and then, like I was talking to him, and he's like, we don't understand why people got to be in such a hurry, especially when you're in your neighborhood and you know where you go.
Yeah.
So,
I think sometimes, and of course I'm guilty of it myself, sometimes we don't realize we're going as fast as we are because we're either jamming to the radio or we're talking not on our cell phone like this, but through the intercom of your car. But yes, I understand. I've been over there before when it's been like that. So, so I understand your needs. Is there any questions or anything that would like to speak or to question Mr. Raver at all about this? I know normally we just take citizens' comments and then we go on with the agenda and then we have the city staff look at it. But and that's what if that's okay, that's what we'll continue to do. We'll just have you take a look, you know, and see what, you know, what is.
Yeah.
You know,
if I can add one more
yes.
thing, I went to the board meeting last night for the HOA.
Oh yes.
And just to make sure that the HOA doesn't have, I mean, there's city roads.
Right.
So the HOA doesn't have to, you know, pay for any part of it or anything like that. But I was asking, I was like, man, can we pay for it? You know,
Oh, sure.
I mean, it's that kind of thing. And, but unfortunately the board, most of them all live towards the lake. So of course they don't want speed humps in the roads because they all live at the end. And so they don't want to have to deal with speed humps.
Okay.
So,
Chairman, would it be
Yes,
possible to
sir.
request additional contact information
Yeah.
so that we
Sure.
can follow up?
Yeah. And
So, and I want to follow up about the street parking.
sure.
So she's going to follow up about one part of it, and I'll follow up with it.
Okay, so hold on just a second. Let us get some additional information from you, like your email address
okay.
or something like that, because our staff here will look into that. And go ahead. Mayor, did you have something to say?
No, it's just that, is it, so, well, okay, no, but now I'm going to talk. We've been looking over the problem of street parking, especially in neighborhoods where there are going to be a lot of kids. We would love for the HOAs to enforce their restrictions, but we also have ordinances that we should be enforcing. We need to rewrite our ordinances. We have literally been working on that for 2 years. What we don't want is more people than parking in their yards.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, most of the time it's like you were talking to the gentleman just had a child. It's usually large families, and now they've got kids that are in driving age, and that's usually the car that sits on the side of it. in the street is the teenager's kid, because that way they don't have to worry about getting in and out of the driveway. So, but yeah, that to me though it is becoming an issue in that particular neighborhood.
Okay, yeah, I've had another homeowners association have called me about, there's a gentleman on the road that keeps his boat parked out on the road he only does it obviously in the spring and summer. And so I'm just waiting for another call on that and to see or I don't even know if he's moved or not. But we appreciate these and let us investigate it and see what we can do to come and resolve that issue. And then our staff will get back in touch with you pretty quickly because we're pretty good at that. Sure, yes, sir. And but if of anything, always feel free to come to our committee. We always enjoy our constituents coming to our committee.
Thank you.
Because it's you're the pulse of Hendersonville, and so you let us know, what the reality is, and not our reality, but the real reality.
Okay.
And we appreciate that very much.
Well, thank you for listening to me.
Yes, sir.
So,
All right. And if you'll let your people know that you came by, are you on the homeowners association there, or are you just were you just
we're not on the board. Or
Okay,
anything.
okay.
We
I got
just
you. That's Larry Ray.
my wife used to be on the board. So
Okay, I got you. Okay, all right. Well, thank you for coming.
yeah, I
And if
appreciate it.
anything else, always come to. We'd love to have you
Okay.
here. Okay.
Thanks again.
Okay.
Guys, have a good night.
Nice to
Thanks
see you.
again. Okay,
All right.
thanks again.
Thanks, squeeze.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Thank you. Good night. Be safe.
No, you didn't.
Yeah. I think we are. It's just we are on to on the two, but we've got up a draft. The budget is just not what we can see. I hope. I don't know if it's not.
You're right.
Okay. Just to let everybody know, I didn't want to waste everybody's time with that, but I attended the homeowners association meeting last night briefly I was on for about 20 minutes or so, and I'll be getting in touch with them. They just had some issues, what homeowners associations, it's the same kind of issues that we've had. So I didn't want to sit, with that because although it's kind of a short of agenda, we might have, it may take some time. So anyway, it was good, as they all are, very good words about the city. To let you know, Mayor, they had a great deal. Although they had concerns about their own neighborhood, they were very happy about our traffic, and then they're really happy about Walton Ferry and Old Shackle Island Road because people, believe it or not, people really notice our town. That you live here, you should notice them. Look, but when they see them working, or they see the pipes and the drainage, and they know something's going on, so they're like, yeah, so.
Did you say they were happy with the
Yes,
traffic?
no, not the traffic. Yes,
The handling,
because I'm sorry.
the traffic handling.
Yes, of the handling of how we're doing it.
Okay, right.
So that makes me feel good as a committee and also as a representative of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and as just a basic representative of the city on that, because we're used to hearing the worst, and so any compliment that I get, I always take it. It makes me sleep better. I'll tell you that much. But they were pleased with that. It was something else. One guy did say about the parks that he saw a plastic bottle out on the benches. So they might.
And you're gonna go pick it up?
Yeah. No, I just looked at him, and I just looked at him and said, "Okay," And I'm just teasing you.
We were waiting on the clean team to come pick
Dude,
it up.
yeah. Oh yeah. So anyway, but no, that's not true. They were very gracious about the park. Works, and as most people are in town, that you guys do an excellent job on maintaining, and I would just ask you to keep doing your thing, man. We'll go through. Okay, buddy. But other than that, then we got down to the brass tacks of that. So, are there any other citizens that want to speak that were here this evening? Hearing none, we're going to go on to the ordinances and resolutions. And we have on a reading of a resolution 2025-16. It's a resolution adopting the traffic impact study guide to evaluate transportation impacts associated with the new development and land use changes. I need a motion.
Motion.
Motion and a proper second. Okay, there's been a proper motion, proper second. Discussion.
I love it.
I do too.
I'll say nothing. Okay.
Well, I've got some questions.
Sure. Go ahead.
And I'm looking at the rules or the plan, beginning on page 13 of the, under that tab, no, page 13. It says that a traffic impact study is deemed necessary by the city engineer or planning commission.
Mhm.
That's G at the top.
Okay.
Would BOMA ever have input into whether a traffic study is deemed necessary?
If it were a rezoning that had to go to BOMA, then yes, of course, in that situation they would. But typically, when we're receiving submittals for site plans, things like that, it just goes to planning commission and is reviewed by the city engineer. So typically, that's when that determination comes in.
To Alderman Roberson's point, could we add a column to give BOMA an opportunity if they get feedback from the community and they
Yeah.
want to do something?
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
suggest, thank you.
No problem.
I would suggest under G, comma, or BOMA.
Okay.
The second one deals with the consultant
Okay.
that's going to be doing the study.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard from some constituents that think that when the developer picks a consultant, that may bias the evaluation because they're being paid, they're working for the developer. Now, I understand that the city engineer and your staff is going to review and can even hire a third party.
Mm-hmm.
But have you thought about the possibility of us determining who's going to do the traffic study? They pay for it, but we're the decision maker of who gets the traffic study and who does it and how they do it. Of course, it explains how they do it in here. but-
Yeah, and that's really the purpose of this, is to clarify exactly how they're going to do it. And with Chris's, or the traffic engineer's review of that, for the most part, that really is, that's sufficient. That's really a lot of oversight. And it's very clear what process they're to follow and what criteria they have to meet. And then in those cases where it is very contentious, maybe, like some of the projects we've had in the past that are very contentious, and maybe there's some questions about the traffic study, then at that time we could use as you stated, a third party to further review.
Which
provide.
further delays the process, though.
It does.
If we had control of the process of determining who that contractor is that's going to do it, there would be no need for a third party, would there?
That's true.
Yeah. I just don't know that I don't know that there's actually a benefit to doing it that way. Whenever the city's managing the process, it can delay things if it's running through the city. And if they're a qualified traffic engineer and the criteria is very clear, then there shouldn't be a conflict. And really, I mean, even though they are being paid by a client, they're responsible to the city to make sure that it meets our requirements.
Yeah.
So,
I guess I'm just thinking of the public perception.
mhm.
Well, that's the developer's contractor.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
So,
in very contentious situations in the past, we have used an on-call, which sometimes takes longer because of whatever their workload is. So, I mean, that could be an option, but I would say that would not need to be our regular
process.
process.
Page 17. The preparer, this is the contractor that works for the developer,
Mhm.
doing the study is going to look at 24-hour count, vehicle count, right?
Right.
Is that a long enough span of time to determine? What if they go out on a Wednesday when there's not a lot of activities? I mean, would it be better to do a whole week of counts and then do an average to get a better indication of what the actual traffic at that intersection is going to handle?
I think I'm gonna defer to our traffic engineer in this one.
Okay.
Typically, one day on a typical day between Tuesday and Thursday is enough. And 24 hours is actually more than what most people do when they do traffic studies. Typically, they count just the peak hours in the morning and afternoon only. And this way, we'll see what the traffic pattern is throughout the whole day on a typical day.
Okay, so you're looking to evaluate a typical day,
Mhm.
not a peak day,
Not a Monday or Friday or any day.
weekend, because Drakes Creek Road,
Mhm.
we've got two parts out on Drakes Creek Road, and Saturday it's just gridlock. So would that not be a valid way to determine, are we going to dump more traffic on that road?
In that certain scenario, Saturday would be an important day. They would have to count as well if they're going to do development in that area, if we know that's going on. Typically, it's during the weekday, but if we determine like a certain event, like on a Saturday, we want to count a Saturday also.
Is it
and look at
too,
that.
is it unreasonable to ask? I mean, they put a machine up, don't they, to do it? One of these counters with something that goes across the road. Is that how they do it?
That's part of it. Nowadays, they use cameras now that can actually record and they can classify the vehicles as well. And they count pedestrians, bicyclists, the whole 9 yards.
I just want to get an accurate, and I'm not sure that a Tuesday on Drakes Creek Road is reflective of an average day.
Yeah, so that's, Stephen may have something to add to this too, but that's also part of the reason why what's included in the back is a scoping agreement. And that's something where we're going to have to agree on what the criteria is for each individual study. And so I would say Indian Lake Boulevard would be another location, for example. We have heavy weekend traffic there with all the shopping. So those would be situations where city engineer, traffic engineer could say these areas are a concern during the weekends. You need to collect a typical day and you need to consider a Saturday as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have
That
anything else
was
to add?
what I was going to
Oh,
point
okay.
out was the scoping document at the back is intended to capture the anomalies and it gives us the opportunity to have input into what they are actually going to study, as opposed to just you're going to do the typical day.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we have that discretion using that document to make sure that they're looking at
So
the appropriate amount of data.
we'll leave it in your good hands, I guess is what,
Yeah.
because y'all understand the traffic patterns on the roads where this new development, let's say, is coming in.
Yeah.
So, okay, all right. So what is a Q study? QUE. What is a Q study?
Queuing.
Queuing? What is that?
It's looking at the length of the vehicles and how long that queue
They're
is.
stacked
They're
up.
stacking.
Okay.
So basically, a good example of that would be like a driveway, a drive-through restaurant that's high turnover,
Uh-huh.
high traffic, and we're looking at, can you keep all your queued traffic in the drive-through lanes on your site, not queue up on our roadway, affect traffic safety?
Overflow.
Yes.
So will these rules that we're promulgating, good word, promulgating, will they give the staff the ability, if it fails to meet the minimum level of service standards, to reject the project to reject the development.
Stephen question.
They would have to mitigate
Yeah,
Yeah.
to meet
That's
the
what I-
minimum requirements.
And if they couldn't, then when it goes before the planning commission, staff would say, we don't support this development because it fails to meet the minimum level of service,
We
right?
have had that happen.
Yeah, it
Okay.
would be part of the comments.
yeah.
Okay.
Or it would be so cost prohibitive that
Yeah.
they walk away from the project, right? They'd have to do so many improvements to an area that they'd be like, well, it doesn't justify us putting this particular development here.
Which ultimately safeguards the city.
Yes, I just want to make sure that we have that power,
Yeah.
based on these regulations.
It might not even be a no from us. They might come to that realization on their own through
Okay.
the study that it's just too
Yeah.
cost prohibitive to make those improvements.
Okay, that's all.
Good question. That was a question that I don't expect an answer, but I'm just talking out loud. That was one of the thoughts that I had about at the four-way there in Ward 6 about when they were building those homes, on the side right there. I don't know I guess it was already zoned that and they could just do it because it was zoned that way. But the queuing was one of the things that I wondered about them, lining up at the stop sign with people's houses right there. If that was going to be a problem, but I guess that it wasn't, or it didn't, or it wasn't anything that, that was even looked at, and maybe it wasn't supposed to be looked at, but I thought about that at that time. So, but that is a good question.
Well, if you'd make that one change about BOMA, so that we could have, if we're flooded with constituent calls,
Mhm.
that we could have input in that would be good.
Yeah, and that's on page 13.
Yes.
Okay, you got it. And I'll
Yes.
put that on, I'm putting it on my list here. Okay, great.
So I love this because the developer bears the cost of it. I think people are going to be excited about it. And I think we jumped right into the questions and didn't give like a broad explanation to maybe people watching on YouTube or at home what this is, what this program is. Can somebody kind of give a broad brush of what we're doing here?
Sure. So this is a traffic impact study guide and a scoping document which provides, clarifies the requirements and criteria for traffic impact studies within the city of Hendersonville. So there are a lot of areas where maybe there's some judgment, things like that. Well, this clarifies a lot of that and gives guidance on how to make decisions and for growth rates, things like that, as well as how long to collect counts and how to approach traffic impact studies for the city of Hendersonville. So it makes the process very clear for developers and their engineers, but it also gives the board and staff a lot to go off of for requirements.
Okay, and as part of a requirement before you go to the planning commission to have any mitigation, lane widening, whatever it is, to accommodate the traffic that the development would create and prevent any kind of problems after it opens up.
Correct.
Perfect.
Great. All right. I know that I was pleased when I saw this, Mayor, that you had produced this document, and I hope that it will be passed unanimously on the board when it gets to the board, which in 2 weeks, I think.
And we'll have that amendment ready.
Amendment,
when
okay.
y'all propose. But I would think that the technical language in this would prove that I had very little to do with it.
Well,
It's our staff.
I got you. Well, I just appreciate the staff, you guys doing this, because when I read this, I was like, well, I'm not going to say what I said because I'm not that mad to use that kind of verbiage, but it was a happy way. I was like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. All right. Is there any further discussion on a resolution 2516's a resolution adopting the traffic impact study?
Recommend approval.
Okay, and there's been a proper motion and a proper second. Everybody ready to vote? Okay, hearing no discussion on that. All in favor of reading resolution 2025-16, the resolution adopting the traffic impact study guide to evaluate transportation impacts associated with new development and land use issues, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, passes unanimously. and recommend it to the Board of Aldermen for further review and vote. Okay, item number two, which is a reading of resolution 2025-15, a resolution authorizing the handmade market to renew its use of the grounds of the city hall for its market activities.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's been a proper motion and second. Discussion on this one.
Can we get an explanation on?
Yeah, I think we've done this before,
This
haven't we?
this is her third or fourth year.
Okay,
Always lets us know, cleans up the place, and the place looks better when she left than when she got here. She always does a great job. It's mostly local folks, so a lot of folks that don't have stores that are, coming out of their garages or their houses and they have a booth there. I do need to take it to the board tonight. She didn't really let us know her dates until we saw them until Casey saw them advertised.
okay.
So we need to move it along. And it's not the ideal situation to be in, but we could hurt a lot of small businesses if we don't move it. Now, obviously, the board might have some concerns, but we really need to consider it tonight at the board level.
Sure.
So,
I have does anybody in the committee have objection for that? I have no objection about that. Do you know what the dates are?
Her first date was in April, but luckily it got canceled for rain.
Okay,
So she never. She is already advertising her next date, which is the first weekend in May. I think it's got to be quite a big event with, dozens and dozens of vendors.
Is this the only vendor that uses the city hall property for the market, for business?
To my knowledge, when I saw it, I was asking questions. I remember we did the resolution in years past, and so I was just curious because it was advertised that there were going to be food trucks and things like that here. I think it's been treated a little differently than our other facility rentals, and Andy might have more to weigh in on that. I don't know that it's the same as like our parks and things like that. I don't know. And I didn't get a chance to read through the resolution.
I don't know.
I don't know of any other one that's using City Hall.
Yeah, I don't know of any others that use City Hall. So we have a church that has done sort of sort of bounce houses, just because it needed space. We had a church that did Easter egg hunt up here last weekend. And a cave. So there's a group that does some dog training. They were trying to learn a little bit more about them. But this is this is
The official one.
yeah.
okay. Okay, does anybody need any further discussion on this one? Do we have someone already, or do you want someone from this committee to make a motion, we add it to the agenda, or are you just gonna do your thing on that?
It's on
Yeah,
there.
so
It is on
So
there?
it's on there, but if somebody could speak up and say at some point that the Public Works Committee considered it tonight, and
Oh, yes, okay, I will do that then.
that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
All right, yes, sir, thank you, Mayor. First weekend in May was that, and that was what we've got for a date, okay.
I think it's like May 3rd.
You better hurry.
Yeah, it's close.
Recommend approval.
Okay, there's been a proper motion and a proper second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, is everyone ready to vote? All in favor of reading resolution 2025-15 is a resolution authorizing the handmade market to renew its use of the grounds of City Hall for its marketing activities. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, it passes unanimously. Okay. Now we've done the new work that we had under ordinances and resolutions. Let's go to other agenda items, and let's go for trash collection update.
Thankfully, this one's not too eventful. Misses have been below an acceptable threshold, and there's not a whole lot to report.
I do have one thing, and they went on ahead and picked it up. A skunk got into one garbage can, and but the holes were not as big as normal, like a raccoon or a possum or something like that.
Yeah.
And so but I watched them, and they took it, and it was a neighbor's house. So I had to, when I heard them coming, I was like, gosh, Mom, I'll be back in a second. So just stay right there and watch TV. She goes, I'm not going anywhere. And so I went out there and watched them, and they did. And I wasn't expecting them to do it because, I mean, when you got holes, you're going to have stuff falling out. But the guys were excellent, and they, just kind of watched it like that and took it up there. But it was definitely a skunk because they have the cameras, and so they really looked at it, and it was a pretty little skunk, little cute little thing, really. But I didn't want. I haven't smelled it yet, so I don't know. Living down by the lake. Okay, let's go on. Enough of that. Let's go on to the path LED conversion.
So
LED.
yes, so
Oh,
this
the
is,
LED.
this is a proposed LED
What's that
conversion
LED?
for, the streetlights in Hendersonville. And I believe that the board as a whole maybe heard from Path a few years ago, when this discussion initiated. And so, William Franklin is here with Path. He's here to answer any questions anyone might have. There's some information provided in the agenda regarding the impacts or benefits to the system and opportunities for savings with converting to LED lights. So I'll hand it over to William if there are any questions you have for him specifically.
Sure.
The one to answer.
So has the projections on savings come to fruition in Goodlettsville
Yeah,
and Brentwood and Nashville?
Brentwood, Nashville, Laverne, yes, sir, they have. Yep, and we've in fact exceeded those expectations, which is always a desire of our projects. There's a couple things that have kind of gone in the right direction on those. One, the savings have come back higher than what we originally expected. Two, because of frankly the project and the scale of the project in Nashville, a lot of the costs of these projects have kind of come down. Particularly the development costs, because of the data that we've now received. You guys have recently had a recent audit of your system, whether you knew it or not. NES was auditing your system here recently. And so frankly, the integrity of a lot of the numbers that we have listed there in front of you has improved over the years. And so in that way, you guys have benefited from it.
So the cost is what, 4.8 million?
No, sir.
What's the cost to
No,
convert?
the cost would be $2.3 million. I believe it's listed in there. I don't know which page it's listed on. I apologize. I can pull it up.
41
Yep.
of the agenda.
There you go. Another likely material component for this for you guys, there's a couple. One, TVA has recently increased their incentives related to these projects. And so it does make it a bit more beneficial for you. Now, it's not overly material. If you look at that CapEx cost of $2.3 million, again, the true cost of the project, TVA incentives recently increased to be roughly around $150,000 for the city of Hendersonville. Again, it's not going to offset all of your costs, but that's money that we previously weren't necessarily counting on. So that's a benefit.
150,000.
150,000. It's 148.9 something, but I predict it'll probably come in closer to 150.
So, can I ask a quick question?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
A lot of the lights are on NES poles, which they have jurisdiction over. But some of our lights are not on NES poles, and that was a problem for us in the past. Is that still a problem, or?
It's not a problem, no, at all. We just need to make sure that we accurately audit and scope the project that way. So you basically got three subsets of poles. You're going to have your NES owned and operated poles, which lights they then operate off of. You got your CEMC poles. Generally speaking, that's about an 85-15 breakdown, 85% of them being NES, 15% of them being CEMC. And then you likely are going to have some city-owned poles, right? And so us accurately auditing that and scoping the project is going to be critically important. But luckily, again, because of that audit data that was recently collected by NES, we can expedite that process for you. Whereas pre that, we would send our own auditors out into the field, and it would take, call it 4 to 6 months for us to actually collect that data. But we have the data a bit more recently because of that NES data or audit. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah.
Yep. You on city-owned poles, obviously you have every right possible to do what you want with it. On the NES-owned poles, we basically have to operate inside of their standards. Luckily, because of our project in Nashville and the other projects we previously conducted, we've been integral in the development of those standards. And so it does offer you still a tremendous amount of flexibility, and we think maximizes and optimizes the benefits to the city. But we do need to keep that in mind as we think about what needs to go where.
So is the 2.3, does that include your costs?
It does. That's a turnkey price. If you look at that 2.3, you can see that the top number is an NES buyout or upfront payment to NES. I can explain to you all the intricacies of why that payment's needed, but basically there's a cost they originally incurred to install the lights, and the city would need to write them a check, and as you can see, that amount is included in that total project cost.
Is that price negotiable?
I wish it was. Unfortunately, it's not. It's actually not even an NES derived cost. It's a TVA derived cost. TVA mandates that they recover that cost and they audit their records to make sure that's an accurate number.
And that's something that we're paying a percentage of every month. It's our plant.
That's correct. Yeah,
So,
you're paying that
yeah.
every single month, and you can go into how your bill is broken down. But basically, into perpetuity, you'll be paying a certain percentage of that amount if you do not retire it. So right now, it's frankly an opportunity to retire it and get out of that cycle of paying an ongoing investment charges. I think quantify that.
Mr. Chairman, can I say something about that?
Yes, sir. Go
Our
ahead.
cycle is a mess right now.
Correct.
It's tough. We need to get out of that cycle that we have going on right now. We're talking about poles that we own the property, the HOA owns the pole, NES owns the fixture and sends us a bill for that as well as a maintenance fee on that. We have some that HOAs own the whole thing and they pay NES or CEMC. We need to get out of that maintenance situation.
And the ROI on this project is what?
I forget exactly how the math works out on this one. Let me look at it real quick. It's listed there. If you look at your true, call it annual savings of 152 grand.
What page is that?
I'm sorry, sir. That is on page 41.
Okay.
If you look at that and you just want to just straight line that,
So what should we save a year? Where is that on
15
here?
years.
How much do we save a year
sure.
in cost?
If you go to page 40, you'll see the breakdown of a pre-project current annual streetlight expense and a post-project annual streetlight expense, left to right. That's how we have it set up. You look at the top set of pies, you'll see right now you're spending on NES lights alone $294,000 a year. We have plenty of reason, and again, we've done this plenty of times, and we're also fairly conservative in these estimates to expect that bill drops to $141,000 a year, where you would gross savings of $152,596 per year, beginning immediately in year one.
Say that again.
Sure.
How much?
$152,596.
Okay.
annually.
That's what we would save annually.
Correct.
So on a $2 million investment, that's a long time for ROI.
Roughly 15 years. Now, that amount increases because of the way that we know annual streetlight expenses increase. And so again, if you look down at the very bottom set of pies, you'll see it referenced over a 20-year timeline, where you can see the net impact of that over a longer period. It's fairly significant. In the way we almost always see these projects financed, so take Laverne and Brentwood as two examples. So both tend to pair debt with these because of the unique nature of the generation of savings every single year that would offset any sort of debt payment, right? More times than not, what we see, and this would be my advice to you guys, if you can't net 10 to 20% savings inclusive of your debt payment, the project's likely not worth tackling. The whole idea behind these projects was, can we generate free cash flow from your existing streetlight plan? And we believe that we can. We've done it before, and I think we can do it here as well. If you wanted to pay for it via debt, just to be very clear. We see other cities pay cash all the time.
20 years, I'd say Skidmore would be the only one here. 20 years.
That's funny.
I'm sure.
Oh, that's funny.
So something that's not in your report is that there's a safety component. LED lights are white. They have good beam spread. High pressure sodium is yellow, and they're just not very good. So wherever you install the LED, you get a benefit on safety. We had a committee a couple of years ago. What was the result of that report? We looked at several different options, and I think we landed that using PATH was the best. Or
Well, ultimately, the recommendation was just to let NES do it. But we've had conversations with NES, and that segues into what I was going to add is that we're going to be forced to pay for this project one way or the other. So if we decide to go ahead and do it now and start our savings earlier, then that's one way to approach it. If we let NES do it, we're still going to be paying for all of this because they're going to put those equipment costs in our plant, and we'll end up paying that back over the long term. And so that's what NES has communicated to us.
Right.
And you have to, if we do it on our own, we have to use an approved contractor, which PATH is. And so they recommended that we use PATH. So that's why they're here to speak to us. So one way or the other, ultimately, over the next 5 years, we will be absorbing this cost, whether it is through our regular invoicing from NES or whether it's through a project with PATH. And that's from NES. They have a 5-year conversion plan for this area.
So we would have to bid it out though, wouldn't we? I mean, they're not a single source supplier, are they?
So there are limited companies that do this type of work, and there are only certain ones that are approved with NES. And so I think there's some justification. Probably we would have to communicate with procurement to see how we satisfy that, whether we put out an RFP and specify there an approved contract, or how we approach that. We'd have to work that out.
And I would add also, this is always a conversation because procurement is an issue neither you nor I want to get caught up in any sort of issues. There's a state code statute 124110, and I can send that out. It may actually be in that presentation. I don't remember. I think it is on the last page. 124110 was designed to allow public entities, cities, of course, being one, to direct procure services if they're procured on the basis of energy savings. Of course, this project is. The complex nature of these prevents you from being able to, frankly, accurately bid it out because an electrical subcontractor may say, that's fine, it costs me X amount to hang that light. However, all the data integrity that has to go back and forth with NES would make that complex. And the state figured out it would lead to a higher cost when people price that in. So there's a pre-qualified list of ESCOs, of which we're one, and you can, in theory, direct procure that way.
You're on a government GIS site, too.
Correct.
So you can get that route.
Correct.
So what is our next, what do we need to do tonight on this issue? Or before we do that, Mayor, is there anything you want to add to this or?
I want your conversation, I want your input, I want your guidance.
Okay.
Then the expenditures seem almost parallel if we were to get a loan with the finance service costs. Is that fair?
That's correct. And to be clear, PATH generally does not play any party to that transaction, the financing. I'm an ex-banker. I can tell you, I'd be happy to do it. But frankly, my cost of borrowing money would be significantly higher. We always advise if that's the direction you guys want to go, you have established financing partners, please have those conversations. You can see on that slide, we made some assumptions about potential borrowing rates, but you're right. Yes, they do. One, frankly, just kind of offsets the other.
Yeah, 169,000. And I think you said 150-something thousand in savings.
Correct. For you. Correct. That's just that first year. The first couple of years, you're actually a little bit behind annually, and then you catch up pretty quick, and the savings start to pile back up.
Yeah.
Is that conventional financing?
Conventional.
So does the city can they get better than conventional financing for a project like this?
Don't know.
You know how Goodlettsville funded theirs?
Oh, man, that was 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
I don't know, sir, but I can get you the details and pass them along to you.
So here's a question I have you all to help me answer this question. Do we want the people who are going to benefit from this over the next 20 years to pay for it? Or do we want to, that would mean taking out some sort of bond, some sort of loan? Or do we want to consider what we have in our infrastructure fund or from our PIP fund ongoing? If we do that, it means the people who are here right now are paying for it. If we go sell bonds or take out a loan, it means the people who are benefiting from this will be paying for it.
Well, this is a worthy project to consider. But I don't know from my perspective if it bumps some roads, some building or widening some roads, and improving some exchanges to help traffic. I don't know how to even, I mean, to me, roads, if we're looking at infrastructure dollars.
Aren't there state and federal grants?
Used to be more than there are now. Believe me, it would make my life a lot easier. Unfortunately, there's not a huge number of them. We'll gladly go explore them. The TVA incentives are frankly the most meaningful incentives. There used to be a grant program that just went away over time for these types of projects. Not to say that you couldn't find other ways to craft the project to fit inside of one, but we're not seeing those widely used right now.
I'd like for the staff to examine some non-conventional loan options, like through when we do bonds and stuff. Where do we get that from?
Raymond James. Raymond James
Yeah.
is the company we use.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if his assumptions, if his assumptions on the financing cost, if we can beat that or not. But I'd like a little more information on the financing option. So let me ask you, is 15 years from the staff perspective, y'all are smart people, is that a wise investment, a 15-year ROI on this?
I think it's a wise investment. I wish we were shorter. What I have been telling y'all for a long time is I've been hearing 4 to 6. And I don't know why they're saying 15. Maybe my 4 to 6 was wrong. Maybe 15 is wrong. Maybe it's somewhere in the middle. Now, he's giving you some numbers that I didn't have. Totally understand that. But I've made no commitments to any company. And that's part of the reason. I want to see what different companies offer with different ROIs.
Seems like a cash flow perspective, maybe more what we're looking at here anyway. Because if the cash flow is better or worse, that's maybe more important than the ROI. And it's probably important for us to also look at what would it cost for NES if they're going to do it anyway. Then any company we choose would need to be better than NES. And maybe substantially, because it's more work for us to get into a contract than just have NES do it.
So is the staff coming to us with a recommendation on this?
I think we have some work to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is helpful.
Yeah, I think we're all in support of it. I mean, I don't know. Tell me if you're wrong, or any committee member. And I think the way to sell it at the board is it's going to be a numbers thing for them. I think as a rule, as a whole. I mean, tell me if you think if I'm wrong. Tell me. Say, Skidmore, I look at it different than it. It doesn't bother me. But I think as far as the total board, I think it's going to be a numbers thing. And I think we need to get our stuff in line because you've done excellent work. I got to tell you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Very, very impressed with what you brought forward. Your answers were quick to us and very concise. And tell your boss you need a raise.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You can send me the recording.
Okay. I'm on TV,
There we
so
go. Perfect.
you can do that. So
Is that, what about the parks? LED lighting in the parks. Do you ever do that as well?
Almost every time.
So could you give us, this does not include the parks,
It's
does
not
it?
currently.
Could you do us up an add-on,
Sure.
you know?
And I tell you, when I say almost every time, I mean that truly. What we see happen almost always, it's always a cash flow thing. And I remember Kirk Bednar, I don't know how many of you are familiar with him, from Brentwood, recently retired city manager. He had this discussion, we'll call it, with his board about, is it a ROI project or a cash flow project? What we almost happen every single time is there's net savings generated, and everybody says, can we just make that equal, cash flow neutral, and add in the parks? Because sports lighting and park lighting, frankly, don't have the payback that a street lighting project does. They don't run for the same amount of hours. However, when you combine them, you can build a project out that's pretty compelling on paper. We can absolutely look at it.
What brand sports lighting do you pick the brand or y'all?
Absolutely. Yep. Now we have established relationships, working relationships. We do not rep anything. We do not manufacture anything. But Musco's, frankly, more and more common ones we use. I've got probably a dozen projects right now with them in development. Ephesus, Cooper Ephesus is another one that's fairly prominent. Whatever your choices, that will work within that frame.
would the revenues, if the board adopted impact fees, could that pay? I mean, with more people living, we need better streetlights. These provide better streetlights. Is there a possible way that could be stretched into helping finance use impact fees for that? That's well, I'll withdraw the question.
I like the question.
Yes, stretch might have been the best word.
I'll withdraw the question.
Okay, a couple more things, if I might just mention these. In my experience, we do a lot of other things other than streetlight projects. I frankly love presenting on streetlights because one, everybody sees them and everybody kind of has a base level of understanding. Two, they benefit everybody equally and equitably, which is pretty rare when it comes to decisions you guys are making, right? And so in that regard, it's sometimes a bit easier to talk about publicly than some of the other projects. The third thing that I want to mention, and I think Sarah can maybe hopefully speak to this, this is not my style and this is not a pressure thing, but this is something at least for all of us to be aware of. We're currently conducting the project in Nashville. Our laydown yard is right on the border of Hendersonville. That's a benefit to you guys. Two, the tariff situation is becoming fairly real for us. And I do not think that's a reason alone to jump at this thing, but I at least want to bring it to your attention. We're seeing other cities that are juggling this with other projects say, okay, we can't risk that project being 20% more expensive next month. You guys know how this is not my thing. So just keep those things in mind as we continue to.
Are the lights coming from China?
The components are coming from China.
China.
The LED.
Correct.
So that's fair, William. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and again, like, please do not hear me say that as you need to jump at this because of it. But I would be remiss if I didn't say
Well,
that.
I'm glad you said something about that.
Sure.
Because that is, it seems like I agree with you. It seems like that's in our horizon as a country.
Look, and it could be prices go up 20% tomorrow, and then the next day they're removed and they come back down. You guys know the news as well as I do.
Yeah.
So it does not make my projects any better. I promise you to sell if they become more expensive. So I'm not rooting for it.
So I think the tariff issue will take care of itself down the road.
Yeah.
Which we need time to kind of vet your numbers anyway with our staff. 2 years ago, we were one of the last jurisdictions to move on LED lighting. All the other ones that are moving ahead, we're not.
Basically, NES, and I know this is recorded, they were texting me, asking me about this and have meetings there tomorrow. They're very curious as to what direction is Hendersonville going to go. Because to Sarah's point, they're going to have to start putting plans in place to convert these lights on their own. How are they going to fund the project? Again, you guys will pay for it one way or the other through your bill or through this project, but they're very eager to get their system converted.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I'd like to determine our own destiny.
Amen.
All right.
So
Before we make what we want to request this, our city staff to do, Jesse, did you have any other thing to say about it? I know the mayor did, or you, or have any other
No,
thoughts?
sir, I know.
Any of you guys, or anybody? Andy, how about you? You think putting an add-on there about the parks would be a good idea?
If that would be a fit, it'd be tremendous. I know the mayor has made that a priority.
All right.
and that could be done at any time.
And we also had a fire on one of the.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest concern in the park is the age of our halogen lighting and the long-term ability to even get the lights and ballasts
Okay. Yeah.
within the next 5 to 10 years. I'm not even sure they're still producing them. I think whatever is in stock is what people have at this point.
The price has shot up on it.
Yeah, they're more expensive than LEDs.
Everybody knows it. If you have it, their prices are up pretty good.
All right. So I'll need a recommendation from the committee. Do anything specifically we need to attack on this, and because we'll have to bring it back here one more time before it goes to the board.
So how long does staff need? 30 days or 60 days?
I think we might be able to get some high level costs from NES. In the past, it's been difficult for them because what they're going to do is they're not going to use their own staff. They're going to have a contractor.
You don't have to go to TDOT.
No,
Thank you.
no. Yeah, so 30 days. I think we should be able to get
Okay.
some high
Next
level
meeting,
numbers.
we'll put it on the next agenda. Y'all think be ready?
I think we can
Okay.
satisfy that.
Mayor, is that cool?
Sounds great.
Does that work for you all?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can tell you, to Sarah's point, they're gonna turn around and just ask us what the price is. Good, we're their contractor performing their system-wide conversion. And so if you guys said, hey, NES, what does it cost? They're gonna turn around and say, hey, Path, what would you guys charge us to convert the lights at Hendersonville? And they would pass it along direct to you. There's not some.
Can you get the add-on for parks in 30 days?
I can, if I can work with you maybe and understand what scope you'd like priced.
Well, I have already in my filing cabinet, a schedule that Musco has done for us of every field that we have not already converted.
Okay.
Because we've converted some.
Sure.
So I can send you what we have left. Perfect. And they have like a 3-year price range on it. I'm sure if you work with Musco, you know Greg really well.
Good.
Yep.
Good.
It's easy. I can take care of that, no problem.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll ask y'all two to get together, have your people contact his people or vice versa. And
we'll
we'll
got to go to lunch to talk about this or something.
there you go. That'd be good. That would be good.
We'll go ahead.
Yeah.
We'll do it.
And do that. So we're gonna ask to have it back on our agenda next month's work, and we'll have that done. All right, is there any further discussion on that?
Yeah, did we want to include a request for governmental funding options that are available to us?
Yeah, I want you to shop around.
So let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Do you want us to go out and do more replacement and keep the payments at the same level they're at now? Or do you want us to look for ways to save money immediately?
Well, if we had plenty of money and not a lot of people asking for it,
Okay.
I'd say do it and get it done.
Okay.
But, we got a lot on our plate, and I want to be conservative. So, I would look more at a cash flow analysis,
That's what it sounds
a
like.
cash flow.
Yeah. So you won't really know which one is going to weigh better until you start digging into it. So why don't we just rely on you guys when you kind of start looking at it to come back with a recommendation?
Good. I agree.
All right. Do you need anything else from
No,
us
sir.
this evening?
No,
We'll
sir.
see you next month.
Thank y'all very much.
All right,
I
thank
appreciate
you.
the time and the questions.
Thank
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks
for having me back.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir. Uh-huh.
Be in touch.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
All right. Sounds good, guys.
All right. Well, that's great. Now we're moving right along.
Budget.
Budget time. Looks like we got it squared away up there, and Sarah, I'm giving the floor to you on that one.
So Jesse,
Or Jesse.
Yeah, I think I'm
Sorry.
gonna defer to Jesse.
Okay, I'm sorry, Sarah. Sorry this evening. Jesse, I'm leaving it to you, my friend. How's that sound?
so my question earlier this week to Jesse was, we're going to have another workshop, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so for this meeting, would it be more appropriate for us to focus on public works and parks? Because those are the two departments. And then our other questions for the workshop, would that be the most efficient use of our time?
I believe so. And this is just the operating budget. So this is
Yes.
exactly what was already given to two of the committees. So it's going to the other two committees tonight. Be going to finance, and obviously it's here tonight. I'm going to pinch hit for Tamara. So I'm going to, we're already past time, but I want to plan on maybe 5-10 minutes, go over this and then keep it open for questions from you. Does that sound fair?
Let's rock.
Sure.
Let's do it. I'm just going to go on the PowerPoint. Here's a slide deck in front of you if you wanted to. But before we start, just to give you the history, we started this budget about a couple million in the red. And so we went through several iterations to get it down where we're at right now. Again, this is the operating budget. At the point that it's proposed right now, it's about $830,000 in the red. So we still have work that we need to do on it. But this is what we kicked out a few weeks ago. We asked each department to keep their increase to 1% unless there's justification. So if there's justification as to why to go above, we just look at it. is justified, we'd go above. If not, we'd ask everyone to keep it to 1%. For salaries and benefits, there's 2% in here for COLA increase for all employees.
And that's based on CPI.
That's based on what the mayor asked to put in. CPI is 2.5% this year, but Mayor Clary asked for a 2% to be put in. And then health benefits, we anticipate a 15% increase. We've looked at switching to the state plan, so that's all included in here. So that's just kind of a high level. So we started in the red. We've
But
kind
the
of
step raises are included,
yes, sir.
2.5%.
Yeah, yes, sir. All right. So the revenues that we talked about at Budget Workshop 1 are relatively exactly the same. So remember at Workshop 1, we went over revenues and assumptions. So we've made some very minor changes. Those are outlined here, but really nothing significant to speak of. So from fiscal year 25 to 26, there's about $1.5 million increase, or 2.28%. So we're not seeing the revenue growth that we've seen previous years. Still really strong revenue, but previous years, our sales tax just exploded. We're not seeing that trend continue. And so we're very similar to the state. We're budgeting pretty flat this year, only increasing about 2.25%. This is just a pie chart of where we get our revenues from. So as we've talked about, we really have two major levers that we can pull here. Sales tax, which is at the max, except for groceries, which is reduced, and then property tax. So between those two, it's about 80% of what we collect, and the rest of the revenues are just, it's a fraction of what we collect. Here's a look at operating expenditures by department. So we're up almost 4%, a little less than 4%, given the COLAs and the health insurance and everything that's all baked in here. And the increases we've seen, I think coming in at 3 3/4 is I think we've done a good job of coming at 3 3/4 from last year. So for the things that will affect this committee, Public Works, that's going to be on row 7. Disposal on row 11. Those are the two major ones. Disposal that's our trash service. It has increases per our contract. So those are things we just can't avoid. And then we have the number of homes that is increasing as well too. So we'll see some increase in disposal. We'll see a small uptick in Public Works, but really for Public Works, very minimal uptick. And that's where we house all of our paving is within, well, not all of it, but all of our general fund paving is within the Public Works Department budget.
And that's 2.8, right? In the operating budget for paving.
I think so.
2.8. Yeah, that's right.
This is just a pie chart of the budgeted expenditures by department. Police and fire are over half of the budget. You will see Public Works at 10%. They're on the right here. And that includes the paving. So Public Works is a substantial portion of the budget. Parks is at 6% right above it. But police and fire, again, are the bulk of the priority when it comes to expenditures by department. And then this is a breakdown of salaries and benefits amount by department. So of all the salaries and benefits, you can see the majority of it is consumed by fire and police at about 74%. And then if you look at parks, it's around 6%. And then Public Works is 5% for salaries and benefits. And I believe that parks is including the part-time staff too, because they have a lot more part-time, where Public Works doesn't have the part-time staff. So that's why you'll see that would be a little bit higher for parks than it would be for Public Works.
Jesse, during the workshop, could you provide us by department the number of employees per department?
Yeah, so what will be in your in the BOMA resolution will be an organizational chart that shows every position in the department plus their pay grade and how many are in that position.
Okay.
We will also have it itemized on a list as well.
Okay.
So you'll see exactly how many positions.
And that's going to be in our workshop, right?
We can probably have it by the workshop, but it is in the ordinance. So
Okay.
we'll absolutely have it in the ordinance. It's part of what we put in the budget book. We for staff, we'll get to that in a second. We'll see what we're doing with staff. So this is total operating budget by type. So you can see 2/3 of salaries and benefits. Again, we saw that the majority of that was public safety, police and fire. Operations, 31%. And then we have a small amount of debt services. Assets and community contributions, they round to zero because they're less than 0.5%. But there's a small slice, but the bulk of budget is salaries and benefits at 2/3 and operations at 1/3. This is what we discussed early on in the budget process. We talked about priorities. So low property taxes. This budget does not include a property tax increase. So it is staying at proposed. The mayor's proposed it at the current rate it's at. A balanced operating budget. That is where your budget, what you bring in revenue on a recurring basis, can pay for your recurring expenses. We're not at a place right now where this is balanced. We are $833,000 in the red. So that's something we're still working on. We do have debt reduction this year. There's $2.1 million of debt reduction when we compare to last year. Very good thing. We're bringing no new debt on. And next budget cycle, we'll have $1 million of debt payment roll off. So continue to make debt reduction a priority. Here's an overview of debt. You can see we pay a very small amount in interest. It's shown on the pie chart on the right at 7%. And you can see the interest dropping from fiscal year 25 to 26. And an interesting note is that we are paying $537,000 in interest while we are collecting over $1 million in interest from our policy. So we are collecting more interest than we're paying in interest, which is a good position to be in. But very low debt and low interest on the debt. Paving was another budget priority. So in the general fund, you'll see $2.7 million. I think that's all in public works too in that department. State Street Aid has $1 million of paving, and then the PIP fund has $3.7 million in paving. So total $7.5 million in paving. That's a small reduction when we consider this current year. This current year, we threw some parking lots in the parks as well. So that number, I think, was 7.7 for the total amount that we spent on paving this year. So small reduction, but still.
So will all this go to streets? All of that go to streets?
I believe it's all for streets.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So very, very healthy paving budget like last year.
Have you come up with a list, a plan for what this money's going to do?
We've driven the streets, we've itemized it, so we have a really good idea. We haven't finalized it yet, but we have a list that we're working on.
So do you think your preliminary evaluation justifies 7.5?
7.5 puts us in a really good position. It allows us to hit the streets that are really needing, the streets that are the worst. 7.5 will cover it.
When will we see the plan?
By the second workshop, we should have which is May 5th, we should have a list of the streets.
Yeah. You want to get into questions, or are you still going?
Well, I'm done if we want to get into questions. That's up to you guys.
Well, we don't have a lot of time.
We're past time, so.
So on the PIP, and I've talked to you about this, Jesse. I've talked to the mayor about it. We went to citizens and promised them that we were going to spend the money in 4 areas: paving, parks, public safety, and infrastructure. And the mayor's budget has 0 for infrastructure in the PIP. Last year, I think we had $250,000, something like that. So we're not fulfilling, in my view, what we promised the residents, that we were going to spend some of this money on infrastructure. That's widening roads, that's improving intersections, something that has an impact on traffic. So I'm going to raise this, Mark, at the workshop.
Yes, sure.
I'm concerned that we're not, I don't think we're operating in good faith to the citizens of what we promised, or what I promised them, and what the ordinance says, that we're going to spend the money in these 4 areas. So that's a concern I have. One of the concerns I have with this budget is the PIP. Let's look at hotel motel.
What page will that be on here?
75.
Thank you, sir.
And I have an ulterior motive for this. So, Jesse, in the blue box, you tell us what the budgeted ending fund balance is going to be for the hotel motel tax, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what you had 113,000, correct?
Yes, sir.
Are you, do you feel pretty confident of that number? I mean, I know we need some flexibility in case the hotels don't. And I know we're not gonna have a big tournament like we had in the past, right?
State cross country.
Yeah, yeah. So are you, how confident are you that the fund balance in this category will be about over $100,000?
Fairly confident.
Okay. Guys, I'm on the golf commission and the Country Hills, our city-owned golf course, and we're doing great. The course is making money and we're spending money in infrastructure on the course. The Public Works comes out once a year. Andy, make sure I don't misspeak. Twice a year and highlight stuff that needs to be done, mainly on the building, the city building, the clubhouse. And with the help of Parks, they have done a lot of the work, but we're still about $45,000 away from doing what Public Works evaluation said needs to be done on the building. Is that right? And so the Parks Commission made a motion, and I'm to bring that motion, that if at all possible, they tried to get it in the mid-year budget, there wasn't room, but if at all possible, to try to allocate $40,000 to the golf course so they can finish the work on the city building that the city has told us needs to be done. Now, we could have done it if it hadn't have been for the sledding damage, you know, the trouble with people sledding.
Right.
And we had to spend, was it 80 or 90,000 on sod?
It's close to
60,000. So I'm wondering, Jesse, could we, out of the hotel motel, and I think you could make an argument that it would be appropriate to spend that out of here instead of 113,000 projected minus 40,000 of that. They wanted 45, but let's go with 40, and so that Parks and the management company can do the work on the building that needs to be done to renovate it. So that would reduce the 113,000 down $40,000. That would still leave you $70,000, approximately $70,000. So what does staff think about that?
Well, as far as an ending balance, I think 70,000 is fine. I don't think we need to have more than 70,000 in there. You know, as far as the golf course being applicable, we can check with the state to see if that's a proper use of tourism dollars. I think it would be. And then after that, it's just whether the mayor would want to include it in his proposed budget.
What do y'all think? I mean,
Yes.
yes.
Well, my only thing would be is if I think that I don't have a problem with it, but I would say that I think the board needs to know what our projection was as a city was at 113, and we want to take 40 out. Well, why do you just don't arbitrarily do that? Yeah, I mean, any alderman that has that seat in there would say, what's going on? Where's the $40,000 going? You know, and then we would have to tell them. You know, I don't mind telling them, but I think that's important that they know that.
And I would ask Andy to explain.
Sure,
He knows exactly what it is.
Sure, we can provide a list with estimates.
Yeah.
I mean, our golf course is making good money, and we're just trying to keep the building up to standard, you know, so it doesn't deteriorate. It's a city-owned building. We own it. So
Yeah, I don't know that the mayor would probably have an issue with it, but you're right. He does need to know what we want to do with that money. Does anybody object to that? I mean, we all are in agreement. It's just, you know how it is. We're all in agreement. We just have different ways of getting to that point. Okay, hearing none, we'll just put this as an acknowledgement, I guess, and have,
Can I have a question?
yeah, sure.
Can you talk a little bit more about the debt reduction? Looks like you had $1 million from this year. So every year we pay down our debt a little bit at a time. Is that mandatory? It
Yes.
comes up with $1 million.
Yeah, we have a debt schedule. So those are typically biannual payments. And when you finance a project, the schedule is at that time it's established. And so you pay typically twice a year until you retire the debt. So that would be like if we went with Raymond James and got financing, just like if we did on this path. They come up with a schedule with how the principal and interest rolls off, and you
It's an
follow.
amortization schedule. Right?
Yeah, but it's not always an even burn. So what's different about this, it doesn't like, home mortgage will burn evenly and your principal, stacks over time and your interest reduces over time. It doesn't typically work that way on the debt that the city issues. So at times there will be a big principal payoff and other times there won't be.
Okay.
So certain years you see a reduction that you don't see in other years.
It's page 71, right, in your book, for the schedule.
Yeah. So the schedules are on page 71. The top left, it groups them all together. Top right gives you debt by year, and then the bottom of the page and on the next page gives you the current notes that are out there. So if you look at the bottom of page 71 on the right side, you'll see a payment fiscal year 26 for 1.3 million in the far right column on page 71.
Okay.
And then for fiscal year 27, again on page 71, you'll see the total payment goes from 1.3 million in 26 to 500,000 in 27.
Okay.
So that's where it's not always an even burn. And if you look at the other schedules, it doesn't always burn evenly how that rolls off. But
All right. I was just hoping we had a pot to pull from, because I think we're about to have another coup like we had with the police. Do we have, if you have money in capital projects and you cancel a project, can you pull it out and move it into something else?
well, capital projects is a non-operating budget. So you don't transfer that into your operating budget. I mean, Bowman can make an amendment anytime to do whatever they want with money. But from a staff level, we don't even pull money between departments. It gets appropriated by department and by group and department. So there's 3 groups in each department: salaries, operations, and assets. We don't even mix between the 3. There's line items in each one where, if FICA was a little less and TCRS was a little more within salaries, we don't go back and do a budget amendment for that as long as the total of that group is not spending more. But we don't even switch between departments in the operating budget. So, I mean, it's as simple as doing a budget amendment takes 2 months by the time you go to committee and 2 readings by ordinance. But that's at BOMA's discretion. We as staff do not have the ability to do that.
So what is in for fire and city staff salaries, or what was it, 2% you said?
Yeah, it's 2%. So staffing considerations, there's built in a 2% cost of living adjustment for all staff. So all full-time staff, there's 2% that's baked into the budget. It's approximately $350,000 for each 1% of COLA for all staff. So just that's the terms that you can think of it. So if you did like a 3% COLA, you're talking a little over $1 million to do that. As far as staff numbers go, Greg figured out a way to actually make his department more efficient with 1 less person, but ranking the positions that are there at a higher level. And then that increase of that reduction of the position roll over to parks. So
So Jesse, if we wanted to give more than 2%, it wouldn't be wise to claw back, use a federal term now, claw back a capital projects, because a capital projects budget is a one-time expenditure. A salary increase is a recurring expense. So you shouldn't take a capital projects $1 million and put it in a recurring expenditure. That's just budgeting, isn't it?
Yeah, it would fund it for the 1 year, but then, yeah, the recurring issue with salaries and benefits is they're year over year. We're capital. That's why we put it in the non-operating, because we can cancel a project. We don't need to do it, but we need to pay staff every 2 weeks. So those are those recurring expenses, why you want to balance your operating budget, but your non-operating, your capital project budget, that'll never be balanced. It'll always be in the red because you don't have revenue to match it. So yeah, you need to be cognizant of it's year over year over year for those increases.
Well, we're gonna have to do something, I think. Talk about it some more, I guess. I mean,
I've got an idea.
let's hear it.
I've talked to Jesse about it. Give everybody the COLA, the 2% and the step. What percentage of employees get a step? If you could come up with that number, isn't it a high number?
Yeah, it's probably 90%.
90%
Maybe
are gonna get
90%.
2.5% and 2%, which is 4.5%. But on top of that, what do you think about, because we've already dealt with the police department. We dealt with them at the mid-year budget.
Right.
So let's have kind of a catch-up provision and give every employee other than police, in addition to the COLA and the step, $2,000. Now, that's not a one-time bonus. That is added to their salary. So their salary actually will go up $2,000. And about what would that cost, Jesse?
There's 387 employees. About 130 of them are going to be the police officers who were given the increase earlier. So you'd have 380 minus 130, so you'd be about 250. So it'd be about $500,000 every year for the if you were to do a $2,000 plus the COLA is $350,000.
Now, the beauty of the given, and Gallatin did this, didn't they? Something similar.
Gallatin, I think, did 1,000. Maybe it was 2 years ago, but they did 1,000.
But the beauty of this is that giving everyone $2,000 doesn't create compression because everybody gets it. So it doesn't get us into that problem of compression. But give every employee $2,000 in addition to what we're already going to do. Except the police department. Now, the police department might be upset with us, guys, but I mean, I'm looking at the rest of the employees.
Well, I think the police are happy with what we did.
I do too. And they'll still get the COLA.
Yeah, in the retirement package.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a good idea. Hopefully we can come up with some more. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, those are the kind of thoughts that I don't mind having at night when I'm sitting there thinking about the city. You know, that's a good thought, really. I mean,
I'm just trying to look for a
I
compromise.
understand. You're trying to do the right thing, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other employees feel slighted.
I do.
I know the fire department does, and I'm sure the parks,
Well,
they
public
work their
works,
butts off.
you know, they may not say, but I'm
everybody.
sure they know. I mean, I've talked to some of them, you know, just off the, just us talking, because, I'm on their committee and, this committee, and they do such fine work. I mean, that's why I've never gone to any other committee, because they do great work. We've got great staff. We got great employees in public works. And so, yeah, and of course with the fire department, you know where my heart is on that. And I think that's a real good idea. And one that would we talk about that at when would you want to even discuss that? I know it's really public safety, but
yeah.
But I mean, it's
I guess at the workshop.
At the workshop.
Yes, the workshop.
That's what I would think that you would.
And the reason I don't want to do more
Yeah.
is because we're getting ready to look at the bridge program.
Yeah.
So we got to hold a few
Right.
cards in our hand.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
we can't play them all out on the deck.
Right. Yeah. We got a couple of aces left.
You know,
So.
All right, we gotta do
All right.
something.
All right. That's a good idea. We might have to have a talk about that some more. But that's good. When is our meeting, our workshop meeting?
May 5th.
May 5th. Write that down so I won't forget it. May 5th is shop talk. That's what I just call it.
Shop talk.
Yeah, shop talk. All right. Let's go on with any other discussions right now on the budget. We're moving right along, or just on this area.
as when
I know
we're
we've got
talking
one.
about debt on page 71, is it true we went in 2025, we paid $776,000 in interest, and we're reducing it in 2026 to $167,000? Is that correct? I'm looking at the
No. We're
That is a
reducing
huge
we're
drop.
reducing the amount by that 176. So it went from 776 to 537,000. So if you look at the debt here in 25, we paid 776, which is what it shows on page 71. But then in fiscal year 26, the total of the interest that we're going to pay is 537.
not according to page 71. Look at the top graph. Look at the top debt outstanding as of 1/25. What does it say on interest payment?
Which one are you looking at?
Page
Sure.
71,
Yes.
the top one on the left. What does it say for 2026? What does it say the interest that we're paying? You don't see it?
Yeah, I do.
It says 167, but last year we paid seven. I mean, I hope that's true because that means we paid a lot of interest off.
That's outstanding debt. I'm sorry. Maybe that is the total outstanding interest debt in total, and not what we paid. I might have misquoted that. So that could be. And Tamara made this graph, so I apologize. She is supposed to be in here doing this. So that could be total what's left. So 776 in total interest we had outstanding in 25, and 537 is total outstanding interest we have in fiscal year 26.
Well, we just need to get this table corrected. That doesn't. I mean, I was hoping that was true, but your number 537 sounds a more realistic number. Interest payment dropping that much.
Well, so this shows that 537 of interest is outstanding as of fiscal year 26. So what it's saying up there is there's 537,000 of debt, of interest debt, which is what this is showing as well too. So interest payment that we have to make.
On parks, I want to. Is this right? Parks, y'all had a lot of overtime, lately, hadn't you? But according to this, we're only estimating overtime for parks $2,000 for the whole fiscal year. Is that true? Is that right, Andy?
20,000.
The original budget's 20,000, but the estimated year end is $2,000. Is that a typo?
I would hope so. Typically,
I was gonna brag on it.
typically we're in the $15,000 to $20,000 range. I mean, we're lucky that all our guys take it as comp time, to be honest, for the most part. Very few of them actually cash it out. Because
Yeah.
if they cashed it out, it would be in the hundreds of thousands.
Because as a result of the 2,000, I think that they're only giving you 5,000 in overtime.
Yeah, that would be a problem.
So
She may have that in there as, because they usually don't cash, the people that do cash it out usually do not cash it out until June, whenever the deadline is to use it or lose it.
Yeah.
So typically we're in the 15 to 20 range.
Okay, might need to
I'll
check
probably
that.
need to check on that myself.
And then Mary's Magical Place, we're budgeting $70,000.
That's correct. That's what's in the account currently. That's just money we've been able to save up from donations from the community and from hosting Pig Fest. So we're just continuing to save that up until we can hopefully, there's a newer type of wheelchair swing that does not require a key and doesn't require being locked up and didn't come from Australia.
Okay. Okay.
So that's
Is there
Okay.
a tariff involved?
they make it in Wisconsin, so it's a little easier to get maintenance on. That's our goal, to try to save up to do that and some other things with rolling that over.
That's all I had for parks. Public Works. See if I've got anything there. Oh, Jesse, on all of the departments, we have an insurance payment of claim. What is that? It's line 44 on Public Works. It's $15,000. What is payment of claim?
Yeah, so if we pay something that gets reimbursed through insurance, that way we don't have to come back. We're basically anticipating that we're going to have some type of insurance reimbursement throughout the year. A car gets hit, we have to pay to fix that vehicle.
Okay.
So we don't come back for a budget adjustment.
Okay. That's fine. Yeah. So as much as I love paving, you know, the little plan I've got, the $500,000, I would propose it coming out of paving. And I would also propose putting some of the money in paving and maybe we could use some paving one-time money out of the fund balance. So I think there's a lot of ways to skin a cat if you know, but
We may be in crisis mode. I don't know if you would consider dipping into our reserves.
Yeah.
And how much do we have in reserves?
We have millions between all three, but we have I think about 20 million in unassigned fund balance. So you could also use unassigned fund balance and not even dip into your technical reserves if you wanted to do a one-time paving project.
but the comptroller requires a certain amount in the fund balance.
Yes, sir.
We're well above that.
I don't
Yeah, how much is that? Do you know right offhand?
About 10 million.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
It-
'cause I remember the old days.
Yeah, we are in
we could pay
excess of
some
that.
of the paving out of that and take the money for doing this.
Yeah, so the citizens still get their payment.
Right.
Yes.
Could do that.
I think there's a way.
We'll figure it
out. A way.
We're government. There's always a way, right?
And the reason we can find a way is because the staff has done such a good job
I'm telling
in
you.
managing the money.
I know.
I mean, you know,
I mean, they have. I mean, that's straight up truth right there.
We have to wrap those.
Sorry.
We have to wrap those.
I'm finished.
We have two or three things left.
Oh, yeah.
I'm finished.
Goodness, I just love Public Works so much. I could just do this all night. Okay, anything else on the budget? Hearing none. Thank you all for kind of showing us the ropes. And we'll be talking about this again at our workshop on May 5th, I'm sure. There'll be some more questions to be asked. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks, Andy.
Be careful. See you in a little bit. On to traffic and parking committee agenda.
Yes, so this is, we met on March 28th and prepared some minutes and sent those to the mayor as we do.
Yeah, I just read them.
And for number one, he advised staff to go ahead and move toward implementation. So that's the no parking signs on
Yeah.
Avant. So those signs have been ordered and we've already prepared the map for staff to perform that installation. We've done the one call. So that's in progress. The rest of the items, Mayor asked to come to Public Works Committee for discussion and decision. So I'll just go through those. Item number 2 is a request for site distance evaluation at New Shackle Island and Creekwood Drive. And staff evaluated the required site distance and what is currently provided and found that there were 2 options. That current site distance was not currently met for the current traffic situation there. So the 2 options would be to install a no right on red, because that's the movement where sight distance is not met for, looking to the left. If you're on Creekwood, looking at the northbound New Shackle Island approach. And so we could install a no right on red, which of course would be a significant inconvenience to residents there. The other option is to provide appropriate sight distance. The obstruction is on private property. And so our ordinance does provide the city leverage to require property owners to provide the appropriate site distance. So that process would involve property maintenance, moving forward with some enforcement there to provide the required clear site distance.
So that's a property maintenance issue, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that would be our recommendation for moving forward.
Does the city ever remove it at our expense on private? Have we ever done that?
If we do, we invoice the property owner for the time and resources associated with that work.
Get liens on a couple properties first.
Yeah, I've had complaints about that, but I know when we cut that lady's bushes down, she's gonna be hot when she's sided.
Yes.
She's in violation. You believe that those plants are in violation of the city ordinance?
Yes, they're obstructing clear sight.
Well, if they are, then we don't really have a choice in the matter. I mean, if we do it, I mean, do we notify her and do all that, or do we just go in there?
Yes, she would receive communications from property maintenance.
Any questions on that one? Okay.
Third one.
Number 3, request for Mustang Lane school traffic operations review. The mayor asked us to look at this. Chris did a pretty extensive evaluation there. And so there were 2 options that were selected by traffic and parking as recommendations. One or the other. Option number 3 was construction of an 8-foot shoulder, which is estimated to be around $250,000 preliminarily. This could be more depending on quality of soils, things like that. And or option number 4 would be to open the Spear Point Gate for improved circulation to relieve some of the traffic on Mustang Lane. If the full opening of the gate is not desirable, we would recommend considering the possibility of the school SRO opening and closing the gate for school traffic only, with a coordinated circulation plan to alleviate the school traffic on Mustang Lane.
Okay.
So those were the two options that were identified.
I've talked to Mark Evans about this. We would like to postpone action on that. We're going to meet with the residents out there.
Okay.
Because this significantly changes the traffic on Spear Point and Arrowhead. Right now it's dead end. And so I would request that we postpone that until we have a chance to
Sure.
get input.
Okay.
Let's try to settle it.
All right.
Item number 4, request for street lighting in Spear Point neighborhood. The reason why we're bringing this is because we found that there's not really any street lighting in the neighborhood right now. There are existing above ground poles, so the recommendation would be to install the lights, but don't remember the quantity. Do you remember?
8.
7.
7 or
I
8.
thought I counted 8.
7 or 8 street lights. So it's still not a significant cost, but it meets the policy. Okay,
It's needed. They're not in compliance with city
that's correct.
policy.
Okay.
Okay.
see anything else on that, on the traffic. Thank you for bringing that.
Thank you.
Red light, the light synchronization verbal update. That's our last one.
Just to be quick, the TDOT reviews are still on hold. So we've received no correspondence from TDOT on our construction documents or ability to move toward construction. We did receive the phase 2 proposals for the construction engineering inspection consultant that we're required to have. And so those are in review now. And we anticipate making a conditional notice of award probably this week. Some progress, but not much.
I'm distracted. Say
They're fine, yeah.
just brief. I'm sorry, I'm distracted.
No, that's fine. The TDOT reviews are still on hold, so we've received no correspondence regarding the construction documents or moving toward bidding. But we did receive the phase 2 proposals for the construction engineering inspector, which we're required to have under contract before we can bid for construction. So those are in review.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Hope we got another Abe Lincoln speech ready.
You know what he called this?
6:47.